Welcome back to your learning journey in the statistics and probability for data science. Now, today, as we progress in this session, we will understand the various types of data. So, the agenda for this video goes like this. We'll understand what exactly is this data, the types of data, and we'll understand why learning the data types are important in statistics. And then we'll also look into the statistical methods that are involved when it comes to analysis of the data. So let's get started and let's start by having a quick recap about what exactly is this data. Now, as you know, data is nothing but it's a measurement or observations which are collected as a source of information. It is just a collection of the facts. So that is what a data is made up of. Now, having a good understanding of these data types will help us to understand and effectively analyze the collected facts and figures. Now, when it comes to types of data, basically we categorize the data into two types. One is a numerical data and the another type is a categorical data. Now, this numerical data is also known as quantitative data. Okay, this is also known as quantitative data. And categorical data is also known as qualitative data. This is a qualitative data. Now, under this quantitative data, we've got two subtypes. One is discrete, and the other type of data we call it as a continuous data. And here, under the categorical data, we've got two types. One is ordinal data, and the other type of data is called as a nominal data. Now let me just brief you about what exactly is this numerical data. See, this numerical data refers to the data which is in the format of numbers. Okay, it will be present in the format of a number. Now, whatever the numerical value that we have in our data set, so that data is called as a quantitative data. And here any number that I'll have, so we'll generally say it as a quantitative data because we can perform the analysis by making some mathematical operation on top of those numbers. So that is the reason that we call it as a numerical data. And when it comes to categorical data, any type of data that we have in our data set which is non-numerical in nature, now we generally call it as a categorical data. Now that you have understood the high level information about numerical data and the categorical data, now let's have a deep dive and understand the important subtypes of each scenarios. When we talk about this numerical data, here inside this numerical data, as I mentioned, we've got two types. One is a discrete data and the another one is a continuous data. If I talk about this discrete data, okay, so discrete data is used to represent the countable items. Now this discrete data, it can take both numerical and categorical form in some or the other format, but basically think about in this way, okay, when it comes to data science and statistics, we will say that the discrete data, it basically takes countable numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. Okay, now in case of infinity, these numbers will go on. So to give you an example, so counting the sugar cubes from a jar is a finite countable example. Or number of returns in an e-commerce website is an example for a discrete data. Now, number of returns over the period of, let's say, infinite years, then that is an example for infinite data. So overall, this discrete data represents the countable items. Okay, this represents the countable items. And we've got continuous data. So here, as the name suggests, this form of data is in the form of the intervals, or simply I can say it as a ranges. So this type of data represents the values which can lie on a number line. Now here, this does not involve taking the count of an items. For example, salary of an employee or the marks scored by a person. In all those scenarios, yes, in all those scenarios, I can have any values between the number range. If you talk about the salary can be $100,000 or it can be 100,000, 0.45 or something. See, I can have any value present in the number range. So those kind of values, we call it as a continuous data values when we are working with this data set. Now, moving on, let's talk about the categorical data. Now, in this scenario of this categorical data, these categorical data represents the characteristics. So it can represent the things like person's gender, language, nationality, and so on. So that's the general idea on this categorical data. And here, when we talk about this categorical data from the data science and machine learning perspective, the data will be present in a non-numerical format. Now, under this categorical data, we have seen that there are two types. One is a nominal data, and the other type of data is called as a ordinal data. Now, if I talk about this nominal data, for your easier understanding, think of this as the names. Okay, N means names. So this is one of the most confusing part for the students. So I'll tell you this. So whenever you hear about nominal data, related to the names. So when you talk about names, so names is just the collection of list, isn't it? So names is just the collection of list where there is no ordering involved. To give you an example, gender. So gender can be male or female. It can be male or female. There is no ordering is involved when it comes to gender. Or nationality. So in the scenario of nationality, so here it can be an Indian, it can be Canadian, or any of the country that the person is staying in. So here, if I have my data set containing the gender, nationality, or favorite color, favorite food, so in all those scenarios, the data that I'll be having in my data set will be present in non-numerical format. Since it's present in non-numerical format, it will be a categorical data. Now, when these data is represented, I have to treat each and every value as an equally important value. I cannot be biased towards the male value with reference to the female value, or I cannot be biased towards the data set where the rows belonging to the Indian nationality compared to the Canadian nationality rows that I've got in my data set. I cannot be biased because it doesn't make sense, because each and every categorical value will have an equal importance because it's just a collection of names, as I mentioned earlier. So this is what you have to remember. When we talk about the nominal data, it is just the collection of names where there is no ordering involved. Okay, where there is no ordering involved, those kind of data is called as a nominal data. The other type of data that we will have is an ordinal data. Okay, this is called as an ordinal data. For your understanding, as you can clearly see, we've got ordinal. You think of it as there is some kind of an ordering is involved. An example, ratings of a restaurant. So when you talk about the ratings of a restaurant, there can be many types of ratings. So excellent, good, bad. Now, if you look into this example, here I've got the data which is in non-numerical format, but the values has some kind of an ordering that is involved. Maybe if I want to represent it in the scale of 1 to 5, okay, I can say for excellent, it is 5. For good, I'll say 3 rating, and for bad, it is 1 rating. Which means there is some kind of ordering that is involved, and I have to take care of it while analyzing these kind of data in case of building my machine learning models. So when we are dealing such kind of data, so we call it as an ordinal data. Okay, ratings is one example, or the other example can be the preference of a customer. So when we are talking about the preference, if someone says as first preference, second preference, third preference in my data set, in such scenarios, there is an ordering involved. So whenever there is an ordering is involved in the scenario of non-numerical data, we call it as an ordinal data. And whenever there is no ordering, it is just a collection of names, then those kind of data is called as a nominal data. And in the scenario of numerical data, if it contains countable set of values or countable set of values in my given data set where I know the interval, that is called as a discrete data. An example can be size of the shoes. So that is an example for a discrete data. And continuous data is a kind of values where in my data set, it can have any values in my number line. An example can be salary of a person. So this is about the various types of data set when we are working in statistics. Now, when we are working with this data set, the reason for us to understand these various types of data types in statistics, because it is very important for us to know. The main reason is based on the type of data that we have got, we will be able to apply the mathematical analysis or the statistical analysis depending on the type of data that we'll be dealing with. Suppose if I'm dealing with frequencies, then in that scenario, I can actually present the data in an efficient way. For example, if I'm dealing with a nominal data, then at that time, I can make use of the visualization methods like pie chart, and I can also make use of bar chart to perform the analysis of the data. So if I know that data type represents the nominal data, then I can choose the visualization methods like this. Or if I'm using the ordinal data, so in the scenario of ordinal data, so if I come to know that I'm making use of this ordinal data in my data set, then in that scenario, so in data science, I'll definitely prefer to use since there is ordering it is involved, I'll make use of label encoder. And I can also make use of pie chart and bar graph as well. Okay. And then if I'm dealing with a continuous data, so if I'm dealing with the continuous data, then in such scenarios, maybe I can summarize a given data set with the help of box plot, histogram plot. So I can apply these various analysis on these continuous values so that I can effectively understand the various overall the underlying data structure in this given data set. So all these I can do it in an effective manner only when I'm aware of the types of data that have got in my data set. Now, to help you progress in the learning journey and to ensure that you are able to recognize the various types of data set in a data set, in the next video, we'll take up an example data set and I'll show you the various ways of identifying the data types and how do you ensure that you're analyzing in an effective way. All right, so with this, we come to the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching and I look forward to seeing you next time. So if you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing.